I am Loki of Asgard, and I am burdened with glorious purpose.
A-D-N.
It's Headphones Neil!
What's up, guys? Headphones Neil here, back with another TV show review, and in this case it's going to be the entire review for Loki Season 1. I'll get to that at the end of the episode as well, or as part of this review. And if you have not seen the series, then just a heads up that there will be spoilers in it. So if you don't want to be spoiled, then of course, like always, finish watching the series and come back to the review. But it's not necessarily gonna be anything particularly spoilerific, just because the show was good. It takes place after or around the time after, I want to say, Avengers Endgame, when the Avengers are trying to get the Infinity Stone to recreate the Infinity Gauntlet, and Loki's able to escape. So the series takes place right after that time, so it's a younger, but that's the events that prompt some of the stuff in the series, but takes place when Loki's his younger self at the end of the first Avengers. So the time when he's captured, he tried to take over the Earth initially for Thanos and all of that. So it's one of those things where the show is, the time frame kind of messes with you as far as when it takes place, but that is also the part of the point of the show where Loki has to answer for messing with the timeline, which, as it turns out, is being monitored by an agency that is not necessarily a real thing, because it's being what we think is originally controlled by robots, but ultimately by a guy who's trying to keep the various realities or universes, basically the multiverse, in check, so that one doesn't take more power over the other. So a friend on Twitter actually made a good comparison that's similar to that Jet Li movie, The One, where you have the various Jet Li's characters in the various multiverses, and I guess one of them figures out a way to travel those the universes and kill the other ones, and all the power goes to him. So a similar concept here, where the guy had figured out that there's multiple realities, and by killing other ones he can ultimately gain more power, not necessarily internally, but because there's no one to oppose him, he ultimately gets more control, and he has a deeper understanding of the universes. And while his motives might be questionable, it is ultimately to keep the universes in check. So overall, by the end of the series, it does provide a good purpose, and my initial reaction once watching this season finale was that this did a better presented us with a better way of thinking of the multiverse, and provided a better lead into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness than WandaVision did. I think WandaVision, now thinking of it now in retrospect, was trying to set up Wanda as a more ultimate version of Doctor Strange, and what he's able to do as far as traveling the multiverses and having the power to control them and manipulate them and things like that, because it's more elemental for her. But that wasn't really presented, especially at the end of the season when she's in, or we see her view of traveling the multiverses, I guess. But that felt more of a callback to what Doctor Strange did in Avengers Infinity War, whereas Loki presented a more deeper dive into the whole idea of the multiverse. So I want to say that viewing them together kind of makes more sense. So if you watch WandaVision and then watch this directly after, or potentially, or even vice versa for that matter, because it doesn't really matter. Maybe watching Loki first would make more sense, just because by the end of it, we're presented with the multiverse and the actions, the consequences of Loki, of the actions of the various Lokis. And then by jumping then into WandaVision, we're presented with a potential consequence and what happens when people mess with the timeline. So I think WandaVision could have been better received, at least in my opinion, because I thought it was okay, and while not necessarily bad, it would have made more sense to have Loki first and then WandaVision, just because now that we have an understanding of the multiverses, that we now are getting a deeper dive into what makes up the multiverse by way of Wanda, because she has that basic knowledge, and by ending it with the same ending scene of her in that cage traversing the multiverses, that it seems like she's understanding her power, or she's trying to do something about it, or whatever the reason, it would present a better lead into Doctor Strange in the multiverse of madness. So if I was to, so other than that, overall, I thought, or getting back to Loki, I thought overall it was a good series. Tom Hiddleston continues presenting the character of Loki very well. I liked his interactions with Mobius, and then Sylvie as the female Loki. I liked the presentation of the various other Lokis, like the one who had a more retro, like 60s Loki look, the more conquering version. The alligator Loki was weird and random, but I enjoyed that little bit as well. So overall, the show is, so if you like Tom Hiddleston's Loki, if you liked his characters throughout the first few phases of the MCU, then you'll definitely like Loki, and I think it stuck the landing better than WandaVision did, as far as if I'm comparing the show side by side. But for me, it raises the likability of WandaVision if watching Loki first and then WandaVision. So like I said, Loki presents the multiverse a lot better and brings us that more expanded view of the universe, kind of like what Avengers did, or the first phase of the MCU did, when we have the introduction of Thanos, we have the end of the Avengers as far as closing the portal, and Iron Man seeing the fleet that's coming for Earth and all of that. So all of that kind of works together, and it's kind of interesting to see it, or it'll be good to see how they present us with the next phase in the MCU as far as the galaxy as a whole. And especially, like, for example, I find when watching the Black Widow, or going to watch Black Widow and watching the trailer for Shang-Chi, it's going to definitely be interesting to see all the various elemental forces and a bigger or further expansion of what was initially presented in the by way of the Infinity Gauntlet and the Infinity Stones and all of that, and more deeper dive into the universe as a whole and the various races and planets and factions and all of that, and how it relates to Earth and that sort of stuff. So if I was to grade Loki, I'd give it a solid A. It's generally just a good, fun time. Definitely worth a watch. The 6 episodes go by pretty quickly. They're all about 35 to 40 minutes without the credits. I think with the credits, they're all right around the 45-minute mark, give or take a few minutes, but take those out and you're right at that 35 to 40-minute mark. So overall, worth seeing. And then we are going to get a season 2 of Loki by way of the mid-credit scene to say that Loki will return in season 2. So I can't wait to see what they do there, or how they deal with his character, especially since he died in Endgame. So it's going to be interesting to see how, and I don't have a memory of him coming back, so it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that, especially with the Multiverse of Madness, now that he's kind of, his Avengers 1 version of him is outside of the time frame, and if that case, or how that deals with the divergence and how they tie that in with the variants and all of that stuff. So that's all there is for this particular review. So if you have any questions, comments, feedback, tips of your own, or feedback of your own, Easter eggs, or things that I missed in this review, then you can find me on Twitter at PatelN01. The website is headphonesneil.reviews for past episodes, subscription links, supporting the show, and all of that good stuff. And of course, if you want an ad-free version of the show, early access to upcoming content, and all of that good stuff, you can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/PatelN01. But thanks for tuning into this particular episode and being a supporter and subscriber to the show, and until next time.